and everything. I feel so lucky that I got to play something that is so far from what I know and what I'm used to. And I super enjoyed every second of it.
I never would have imagined that I would get to be Snow White. So truly just for people to see someone who looks like them, someone who represents a dreamer, no matter what they look like or where they come from.
All right, everyone, buckle up because this story is juicier than a soap opera and more tangled than Rapunzel's hair. Disney's live-action Snow White remake has gone from being one of the most anticipated projects of the decade to a full-blown Hollywood disaster, complete with behind-the-scenes drama, fan outrage, and a lead actress caught in the crossfire of controversy. We're talking about Rachel Zegler, the star who went from being hailed as the future of cinema to being labeled a walking PR nightmare. But is she really to blame for the chaos? Or is there more to this story than meets the eye? Let's dive into all the messy details and figure out how this fairy tale turned into a nightmare.
The problem with our society can be found with Snow White and what's going on with Snow White. We have too many people that don't know what it's like to...
First, let's get to the heart of the controversy, the decision to replace the iconic Seven Dwarfs with CGI characters and magical creatures. Reports suggest that Rachel Zegler herself played a pivotal role in this jaw-dropping move. According to insiders, Zegler allegedly pushed Disney to ditch real-life actors with dwarfism in favor of computer-generated characters. Why? Rumor has it that she framed the decision as a progressive step forward, claiming that the original portrayal of the dwarfs was outdated and offensive. But here's the kicker. Sources say that while she was making this so-called woke suggestion, she was also negotiating a bigger paycheck for herself. Talk about a power play. The move sparked immediate backlash, with critics accusing Zegler of erasing opportunities for actors with dwarfism under the guise of political correctness.
And had a reprimand because when they went out on tour for publicity, she starts in with all of her political nonsense. And that wasn't helping Disney.
And if that wasn't enough to raise eyebrows, let's talk about Peter Dinklage's involvement. The Game of Thrones star famously criticized the original story, calling it backward and labeling the depiction of the dwarves as problematic. At first glance, it seemed like Dinklage was simply sharing his honest opinion. But was there more to it? Insiders allege that Zegler and Dinklage were in close communication long before his controversial comments went public. They reportedly discussed the need to modernize the story, with Zegler allegedly encouraging Dinklage to speak out in a way that would pressure Disney to make changes. The timing of Dinklage's remarks raised suspicions, as they conveniently lined up with the early stages of casting. Coincidence? Some think not. Critics have suggested that Zegler orchestrated the entire situation to align with her vision for the film, and of course, her own growing influence behind the scenes.
Who is the fairest of them all? Apparently it isn't Snow White.
Jonah Platt, whose father helped produce the latest Snow White film, had some very harsh words for star Rachel Zegler.
Now, let's not sugarcoat it. Fans were furious. Social media exploded with outrage, with many accusing both Zegler and Disney of prioritizing corporate interests over authentic representation. It's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, not Snow White and the 7 CGI blobs, one fan ranted. Another chimed in. This was a chance for real actors to shine, and they took it away. Shameful. The backlash wasn't just limited to online commentary, it spilled over into the industry as well. Several actors with dwarfism spoke out, expressing their disappointment and frustration at being excluded from a film that should have been a celebration of their community. Critics argued that Disney's decision wasn't progressive at all. It was performative at best and harmful at worst.
Variety breaks down how after this tweet went viral, the studio was shocked that she would mix a promo tweet with a political statement. As a result, Mark Platt flew to New York to speak with him.
Disney's controversial decision to replace the traditional portrayal of the Seven Dwarfs didn't come out of nowhere. Sources suggest that the studio found itself in a difficult position after Peter Dinklage's public criticism went viral, labeling the depiction of dwarf characters as outdated and offensive. Concerned about the backlash that might arise from sticking with the original portrayal, Disney executives reportedly scrambled to find a way to modernize the narrative. It has been suggested that the studio viewed Rachel Zegler's ideas as a potential solution to reframe the story in a way that could be perceived as progressive. However, this approach appeared to backfire as the lack of consultation with the dwarfism community became a major issue. Observers noted that had Disney worked directly with actors with dwarfism, they might have created a more thoughtful and inclusive outcome. Instead, the move was widely regarded as tone-deaf.
The film received backlash for various reasons in the lead up to its release. Zegler had called the original Snow White movie dated and weird and said Prince Charming was a stalker.
The decision to replace the dwarfs with CGI characters also had significant unintended consequences. Critics argued that removing real actors from these roles diminished the film's authenticity and emotional depth. Fans of the original story expressed frustration, emphasizing that the dwarfs were not just minor characters, but central figures who played a pivotal role in Snow White's journey. Many felt the CGI replacements lacked the heart and personality that made the original characters so beloved. Early reviews echo these sentiments, noting that while the film was visually impressive, it came across as emotionally hollow. Critics highlighted the lifelessness of the CGI characters, suggesting that their presence felt more like a superficial addition than a meaningful enhancement to the story.
As Rachel Zegler hurt the film's box office with her actions in since-deleted comment. This is the exchange.
Compounding the challenges, leaked reports indicated that some Disney executives had doubts about Rachel Zegler's casting from the outset. Although her performance in West Side Story earned her critical acclaim, there were concerns about whether she had the experience to lead such a high-profile project. Some within the studio reportedly questioned whether she was ready to take on the immense responsibility of playing Disney's most iconic princess. These reservations only grew as Zegler's public comments began to draw negative attention, with some executives allegedly viewing her as a potential public relations risk. Despite these concerns, her casting was ultimately approved, with hopes that her rising star power would reinvigorate the franchise and bring a fresh perspective to the role.
And you can have that in your persona, but when you come out and the freedom of speech was to condemn the very thing that you're paid to build? Are you kidding me?
But the fallout didn't stop there. Disney's internal response to the controversy was equally dramatic. When the film finally hit theaters, it was clear that the studio was in full damage control mode. Reports from behind closed doors revealed that Disney executives were livid over the negative press, and they weren't shy about pointing fingers. One insider claimed that during a high-level meeting, an executive slammed the table and said, "She torched $1 billion brand in under a year, and we paid her to do it." Ouch, that's not the kind of feedback any actress wants to hear. Whispers from within Disney suggest that the studio is even exploring legal options to recoup some of the financial losses, with Zegler potentially on the hook for a portion of the film's disastrous box office performance. Imagine being the face of a movie and then being asked to pay for its failure. Yikes.
Literally no clue. To conclude that, and I love Platt's first saying, "You really want to do this?"
Yeah.
I love his first
That's
saying,
right.
"You really want to
That's
do
right.
this?"
Yeah.
I love that.
And speaking of box office performance, let's talk numbers. Snow White was supposed to be a surefire hit with a production budget of over $250 million plus another $100 million in marketing costs. Disney was banking on this film to be a blockbuster. Instead, it opened to a dismal $43 million domestically and just $87 million globally in its first weekend. For context, even Dumbo, a live-action remake widely considered a flop, performed better than that. To make matters worse, the film's second weekend saw a massive drop in ticket sales, with Snow White losing its top spot to a Jason Statham action flick. The message from audiences was clear. They weren't buying what Disney was selling.
Words talk, numbers scream. People are screaming. Disney, get it together. Who is the Disney's customer? You talk about this all the time, Pat.
So, how did Rachel Zegler respond to all this chaos? Well, let's just say her public appearances didn't exactly help her case. In interviews leading up to the film's release, Zegler made several comments about the original Snow White that rubbed fans the wrong way. She called the 1937 classic creepy, criticized the prince as a stalker, and dismissed the love story as outdated. While some applauded her for taking a modern stance, others felt she was disrespecting a beloved piece of cinematic history. Why take on a role if you hate everything about it, one fan questioned. To make matters worse, Zegler also faced backlash for resurfaced tweets in which she made polarizing political statements, including a dig at Donald Trump supporters. These remarks only fueled the fire, with critics accusing her of alienating a significant portion of Disney's audience.
And you have parents looking at Disney being like, what are you doing, guys? Like, this is supposed to be a place where...
When the backlash reached a fever pitch, Zegler issued an apology, but even that turned into a PR disaster. Rumors quickly spread that her apology was ghostwritten by Disney's PR team, with every word carefully crafted to minimize further damage. Fans weren't buying it. Social media was flooded with comments dissecting her tone, expressions, and even her blinking patterns. "She doesn't mean it. She's just trying to save her career," one user wrote. Another added, "This isn't an apology, it's damage control." Instead of calming the outrage, the apology only seemed to pour gasoline on the fire. Behind the scenes, the production of Snow White was just as chaotic as its reception. The film faced multiple setbacks, including delays caused by Hollywood strikes and even a fire on set. Creative differences between executives and producers reportedly led to constant rewrites, with the final product feeling like a disjointed mess. Early test screenings received poor feedback, forcing Disney to make last-minute changes that only added to the ballooning budget. By the time the film was ready for release, it was clear that the magic was gone.
Feelings about Israel and Gaza, I don't care at all. I care a little bit more about Rachel Zegler having like an underlying amount of contempt for the intellectual property.
In the end, Snow White became a cautionary tale for Disney and Hollywood at large. The film's failure has sparked a broader conversation about the risks of prioritizing messaging over storytelling, as well as the challenges of navigating modern cultural expectations. As for Rachel Rachel Zegler, her future in Hollywood remains uncertain. While some believe she can bounce back with the right project, others think she may have burned too many bridges to recover. Only time will tell whether this chapter in her career is a temporary setback or the beginning of the end. So what do you think? Was Rachel Zegler unfairly blamed for the film's failure, or did she play a role in its downfall? And what does this mean for Disney's live-action remake strategy moving forward? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more Hollywood drama. See you next time.